that leaves no listener behind.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the greatest real estate investment show ever. Here's the flip-flop investor himself, Todd Bayer.
Hey everyone, it's Todd Bayer, the flip-flop investor himself, and this is the Flip-Flop Investor Show, where we get together every week and talk about real estate investing. Glad to have you all with us today. For those of you who have tuned into the show, you know that every month we have focus on a particular topic, and in January we started with with a goal setting, because, you know, turn of the year, you got to start talking about setting your goals. And then in February we started talking about business planning, and now that we're in March, we talk about deal finding. So acquisition, basically, this is where you're now as a real estate investor, you're trying to find those deals that you want to do. And so all month we've had people come on who are acquisition specialists, and today we have, to round out the acquisition side of things, we have a software company owner that's going to talk about software that he's developed for finding deals, for finding sellers. So thank you, James, for coming on from findsellers.com and NAMO.
Appreciate it's good to be here, Todd. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So let's go, before we start talking about Find Sellers, let's talk a little bit about where you came from and how you got to this point, because your background, you were working in politics.
Yeah, so correct. I received my undergraduate degree in political science from UC Riverside, and then went out to Claremont and earned my master's in analytical politics. And so what that is a lot of, you know, data science, predictive analytics, econometrics, and, you know, I applied that knowledge that I learned in my graduate program to develop this tool in real estate. So, you know, my experience, my, you know, work life, I, you know, employed these predictive analytics to identify high propensity voters for campaigns. I've consulted for a few campaigns here in the region. And the same methodology that we use to score voters based on the likelihood of supporting a candidate, likelihood of, you know, turning out to vote, I leverage those tools for real estate. And
so I'm curious, you know, because I don't think I ever really dug into it with you on the political side. Like, how do you determine a voter's propensity to turn out and vote? I mean, how do you determine stuff like that?
Good question. So, you know, it varies race to race. So, you know, there's a different voter that may turn out for a midterm, especially a primary opposed to a general election. Mm-hmm. So a lot of that has to do with actual voting history. You know, did you vote in the last election? That's the highest correlate.
Is that information public?
Yes, you can actually purchase these voter files from the county registrar.
Okay.
And, you know, view voter history. You don't know who that person voted for, but you do know that they did vote in a particular election.
Okay.
And you can also look at, you know, party affiliation, these types of inputs. Age, there's a slew of other metrics that, you know, campaigns use to identify who's most likely to support their given candidate, based on, you know, it could be issue based, or it could just be a general turnout model. So campaigns, leverage the actual sort of, you know, statistical term is it's called a logistic regression.
Okay. Yeah, obviously I mean, you learned that in grade school. That's such a basic concept everybody gets, right?
So yeah, that's just, you know, it's basically a 1-0 outcome. 1, did that person vote? 0, they didn't vote. And what happens is you return a probability based on, you know, that voter's propensity to either turn out in that given election that you're trying to, you know, analyze.
Okay. So, I mean, it's interesting to hear, because I mean, I'm not in the political world yet, so I don't really know that this stuff's available. I've never run for an office. I've never known anybody to have run for an office. So, you know, I'm completely green when it comes to this stuff. So it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, you know, and it's certainly in the news right now, very visible with the, you know, Cambridge Analytica. I don't know if you know much about that, what's going on with Facebook, but yeah, they're really taking a hit right now as far as, you know, the whole delete Facebook movement, because yeah, I mean, Facebook, that's what they do, is they get your data and they sell it to campaigns to, you know, for targeting on their platform.
Yeah, and, you know, I think a lot of people don't understand how companies like Facebook and Google and things like that actually make money, you know, and they're selling something to somebody.
Yeah.
You know, and they're not selling anything to you as the consumer of their websites.
Yeah.
You know, instead they're selling, like Google sells advertising, so does Facebook. You know, and they know their target Facebook probably knows their target better than anybody.
Facebook, but believe it or not, I think there's a lot more information that Google has on you than Facebook.
You think so?
Yeah, because Google, they're looking at every single one of your emails that comes through Gmail, extracting features from your email, whether it be.
I'm not on Gmail.
Yeah,
So.
all right. Well, if you were, but a lot of people are. Have you ever used Google to search anything?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're getting data from you.
Yeah.
And but that's in turn we use this great service, right? This great search engine, this great email client. So it's that's the trade-off between convenience and privacy and security. So
Right.
if you it's convenient to have 1 2 3 4 as your password for everything.
But it's not very smart.
No, it's not smart. And yeah, so getting back to
Great. Now I got to change all my passwords. Thanks, James.
yeah, or definitely don't use password as your password if you're going to change it.
Oh man, there goes my other idea. All right. So basically the like big data, right? That's kind of like the concept here that people were talking about.
Yeah, big data, artificial intelligence. Really, what it is pattern recognition.
Mm-hmm.
So, in an election, stepping back to the election, every candidate, will have sort of a profile of voters that are likely to support them. And so you may know, if you're a Democrat, maybe you're looking for minorities specifically in certain age groups. Certainly younger millennials are more likely to vote Democrat. And a slew of other demographic information will inform that campaign about who's likely to support them. Mm-hmm. So in turn, you can utilize these data analytics and map predictive scores onto every single voter. And what you do, if I was managing a campaign, I would focus on those voters that have a high probability of supporting me, because ideally I'd like to send a piece of mail to every single voter. Sure. But that's not cost effective.
Yeah.
And
well, yeah, of course not.
No.
But I'm sure most campaigns probably do.
Yeah, and again, it varies from primaries to generals. I think this campaign I worked last year in the West Valley Water District had a 7.8% turnout, whereas the 2016 general, Hillary Trump,
Mm-hmm.
I think the national turnout was somewhere above 65-70% for San Bernardino County. Yeah.
Wow.
So and you could see it pays to certainly be more precise and targeted in these small scale races where the turnout only 7-8% of people are going to vote. Well,
Sure.
If you can increase that turnout by 1% in your favor, you can win an election.
Well, plus like in the local level, the spending limits are a lot more constrained than like on the presidential race level. Obviously, they can spend more money on their campaigns.
Yeah.
And they can raise more, because what's the limit you can donate to like a local water board politician?
Yeah, it varies county to county, but yeah, it's typically less than 15,000, 20,000.
Yeah, so they got to run a whole campaign. If they're going to mail the entire county, 15,000 is not going to get them very far. So
certainly, so
because they got to do other stuff too besides just mail.
Yeah, and that's why campaigns rely heavily on volunteers going out door knocking, and that could even be a nice segue into real estate, because it's this term door knocking, canvassing precincts and politics certainly translates to what people do in real estate, and looking to generate leads and find deals.
So vote for Mike Smith. And what are you doing with this house? Are you looking to sell?
Exactly.
Okay, so that's very smart. That's a very smart application for demographics and for political campaigning and stuff. That's and you built a model out for that. So what made you build NAMO, which is now also findsellers.com?
Yeah.
Like, what made you go that route, like into real estate?
So my mom and my grandfather are actually real estate agents. Grandfather's retired, but he was a broker for many years in Corona, and my mom's active in Riverside, Temecula. So I certainly, I've been able to access this data. I've always, helped her, in some of the data analytics with various markets that she was trying to, enter into. And I realized that, there's certainly a use to develop a tool like this in real estate. Agents who are also constrained financially. I mean, ideally it'd be nice to send a mailer to every home in a neighborhood, but if you send that mailer, you'll be sending it to people that are perhaps renting. If you're looking to find a seller, you're sending a mailer to somebody who's renting isn't a good use of postage and printing costs.
Right.
Certainly sending that mailer to somebody in a vacant home isn't a good use of that.
Or like somebody, we talked about it last night, because for those of you that came to the Inland Empire Real Estate Investment Club last night, you got to hear James talk about it just a little bit at the club meeting. But we talked about last night where like somebody that just bought a home within the last 6 months, let's say, or a year, or even 2 years, has a very low likelihood of selling their home. So if you're a real estate agent or an investor out looking for sellers, you don't want to be mailing to that person. I mean, it's a waste of your money because the chances of them selling is so low.
Correct.
You're practically throwing money away.
Yeah. Unless, let's just say, maybe the last 10 transactions in a given neighborhood, the owner owned that home for less than a year. Perhaps, there are these market dynamics at play in some, micro areas that, that is the average profile of investors or of home sellers. So
there's a neighbor on the corner that's just a real pain for everybody in the neighborhood, and that causes them to sell. Who knows?
Yeah, so that's every year the California Association of Realtors, and which is a larger entity nationally, National Association of Realtors, they release a home seller survey, which sort of gives the average profile of who is selling. So I believe this past year in 2017. The average seller's age was 54 years old. I think income of about $120,000. Average years in home was, I believe, 11 years. So, there's sort of these average tendencies associated with any outcome. About what is the average profile, demographically speaking, even property characteristics. What's the average square footage of homes that are sold, but again, California is a large state, and there's a lot of variation, city to city, even neighborhood to neighborhood. So,
Now, have you taken your demographics data and compared it to California Association of Realtors data to see if you guys are coming up with the same answers?
Yeah, for California at large, correct. Yeah, it maps on to a T within 1 or 2 years of that age and income
and are you
metric.
And then how far down of a level are you taking it? Are you taking it down to city level, zip code? Are you taking it down to neighborhood levels? I mean, how far
even
down do you
smaller.
take this?
So just kind of stepping back, in sort of the hierarchy of geographies, we can think about it in terms of the city. First we'll say the state, the county, then the city, then the zip code, then the census tract, then the census block group, then the census block. So on average, a tract has around 1,000 homes in it. That varies, in some, rural, less population dense areas, it may be less, but at the block group level, now we're getting down to a few hundred homes, and at the block level, we're getting down to about 30 homes.
Okay.
So what our model essentially does, our predictive model that ranks every homeowner in a given neighborhood based on their propensity, their likelihood of selling, is we look at that average profile of who is selling in that small locality. And I mean, maybe it is the same in this census block group, 54 years old, 110,000 in income, similar to the average tendency of sellers in all of Southern California. But perhaps in another neighborhood, like I said, maybe the average profile of home sellers is 70 years old with $60,000 in income, who've only been in their home 1 year, which I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but the data certainly speaks volumes about who is selling, and with increases in computational power among computers and these machine learning algorithms, we can crunch all this data and map these predictive scores accordingly. And
so, are you taking it down to that block level, or have you?
Yeah.
Does the system does NAMO take it down to that level?
The system does, correct. Yeah. So NAMO. Maybe I'll kind of delineate between what NAMO is and find sellers.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, so NAMO is the parent company that, and that was the first product that we developed. And we actually grew out of UCR's tech accelerator, Excite. So it's nice. We're getting a lot of support here from the local community, startup community. And yeah, after spending about a year there, a little over a year, we launched version 1 of our product. We had a nice group of beta testers to help us use Namo. And so Namo is more targeted for real estate agents, savvy real estate agents that are really, getting their hands dirty with the data, want to really develop these micro farms of, less than 100 homes. Whereas, so that's sort of what we call an advanced farming tool. Whereas Find Sellers, that's specifically, the language, it's all targeted for real estate investors, more on the, in the terms of list generation.
Sure.
So it's the same back-end technology that powers both platforms, except Find Sellers is sort of a step-by-step list generation tool. Whereas simplified, yeah. And whereas Namo is... there's a few more features that, your users have available to them, and, it sort of takes a little bit of time getting to learn.
Yeah, I know. I've played with it myself. I like these simple, easy to use. Just tell me what to click on next thing.
Yeah.
Like Amazon, it's like trying to get you to the sales cart as quickly as possible and get you to buy stuff.
Yeah.
So,
totally.
Okay, so let's break it down a little bit, because the technology behind this and how you find sellers, it's a mixture of demographics data combined with sales data,
combined with census data, combined with... So yeah, we have about 12 individual data sources that go into our platform. We license our data from First American Title, and that gives us, sort of all the tax assessor records, county recorder records. And then we, have a contract with ListHub, that's how we get all the sales data in the region. So listing prices, census data that we integrate, sort of that gives us these, distributions of income, ethnicity, gender, all types of demographic information down to that block group level of around 30 homes, like I just mentioned.
And are you profiling sellers and buyers?
No, it's not buyers. It's just... So,
because wouldn't it be?
Question.
I'm just thinking, like, it would be interesting for me anyway to be able to see not only who's selling in a neighborhood or on a block level of the census, but also who's buying in that neighborhood. So if the average age of a seller in that area is 70 years old, let's say, but the average purchasing age is like 35.
Yeah.
Like that would mean to me that maybe that neighborhood is gentrifying or something.
Yeah. Some different dynamics at play. So yeah, currently that's a good question. The outcome that we're predicting is the sale of a home. So that's sort of that 1-0 input that.
But I wonder if I'm just thinking out loud here. Maybe by tracking the buyer's data by who's buying, you could actually that could affect the seller data, because if you find that the average age of the seller is 75 and the average age of the buyer is 35, you can say anybody that's over 70 years old is got an even higher likelihood of selling. Like, it gives that a much higher weight, because they're not going to be in a community that's among their peers, I guess you could say. Like, people want to live amongst people that are like them, right? So
we could put that on the list of R&D.
Yeah, that very short list of R&D. I'm sure there's probably not many things you guys are working on, but just take my pie in the sky idea and do with it.
Yeah, I'll write that down. Definitely.
Yeah. If not, hey, we got it on a radio show. It's recorded. We could totally come back and replay this later, and we'll revisit it. It'll be fun.
Very good. We'll definitely revisit that.
So you got all this, you got a lot of great data. Obviously, I mean, this is I think it's an amazing tool. That's why we invested in the company, right? Because we're like, this is awesome. Putting this data together in this way is phenomenal. And there's already been some great results that have come from this, basically, because you're generating a list of people's addresses that have a high likelihood of selling.
Correct, yeah. So that's that score, the predictive score that we map onto every single home is, it's called our NAMO score, and that's ranges from 0 to 100, 100 being the most likely, 0 the least likely. And, if you can go back to your, high school statistics class, it's all based on that bell curve. So a normal distribution, you'll have, most of the people will center around the mean, which is
the middle, basically.
The middle, correct, 50. And, there are certainly homeowners that are, in the 75 to 100 range, and that's sort of where we're seeing the greatest results using our predictive score. So back testing the historical accuracy of our score, our model predicts that 70% of homes with a listing score above 75, so in that top 25 percentile, will sell in the next 12 months.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah. But I mean, that really doesn't say anything about a given user's individual response rates based on the direct mail campaign.
I mean, you could hand these amazing leads essentially to somebody. If they're a terrible salesperson or a terrible person in general, then
still got to convert. Totally. But no, to that point, we actually survey all of our users, and so we have about 120 individual data points that we've collected from our users, and the average response rate among users of our platform is around 6%. So, I don't know if you're familiar with the industry average, but it's less than about 1%.
Yeah.
So, that's a 600% increase, and you could, sort of the pitch that we tell people is send less mailers, generate more leads.
And that's what I love about it, because, you've heard of people, obviously, I know you've heard of people that have like a $10,000 a month budget just for sending out mailers. And they're just blanketing a bunch of like zip codes essentially and just sending them to every single home, just completely disregarding the fact that some of those homes may have been recently sold. Maybe they're owned by a corporation that's owned it for 20 years and probably have no interest in selling it anytime soon. Like, they just send it to everybody. And, even non-owner occupied stuff. And, it works. Obviously, they get deals. They get leads this way. But they could potentially cut their marketing costs down from a $10,000 a month budget down to like a $1,500 a month budget and get the same result.
The same results. Yeah. So that's, what we call it is sort of the shotgun approach that a lot of people do is, the mailer goes out,
spray and pray.
Spray and pray. Whereas, the NAMO is sort of the targeted rifle approach.
Yeah.
It's all about, again, people are always looking to save money. Especially real estate agents, investors with a, finite budget. If you want to send 10 pieces of mail once a week, you can do that using our platform, and they'll be very highly targeted pieces of mail that you can, certainly ensure a higher response rate than, this shotgun approach that I just mentioned.
Yeah, because I know I ran a list yesterday, to make a demonstration for the meeting.
Yeah.
And I ran downtown Riverside. And in downtown Riverside, in 92501 zip code, I think there was 3,233 homes, if I'm remembering correctly. Okay. And of that, if they of a higher, I think I gave it an accurate or a NAMO score of 85 or higher.
Okay.
And in that group, I think I got 30 or maybe 40 results. So rather than sending out 3,500 pieces of mail, which let's assume they're $1 a piece, that's $3,500 I could have spent, or I'm now just going to spend $40 on sending out mailers, and I'm hitting people that are 85% likely to sell or higher. And, for me, I could maybe even spend a little bit more on my postage to get myself noticed a little bit more than, the guy who's just sending out the postcard that says, I buy houses cash or whatever, Yeah. I know everybody is out there. They've seen these things. They probably get them too. I get them.
Well, a lot of you're right. It's a higher value, actual piece of mail is sort of the extra component, because if you're saving money and you're not having to send it to as many homes, you can spend more money on that mail. And, the convention is, especially among real estate agents, it's called every door direct mail. Are you familiar with that? So that's, it's cheaper. You can get sort of these bulk postage rates,
okay.
But those are those pieces of mail that show up that just say current resident.
Oh, right.
They don't. It's not personalized to the actual homeowner.
I've never actually seen those before, because if it doesn't have my name on it, I just throw it away. So I've never actually seen what you're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, so that's what happens. So you're saving money on postage, but no one's looking at your
you're getting
mailer, your
less
postcard.
less than 0.1%.
Yeah.
Probably response rate to something like that.
Exactly. So. That's the value, that's the beauty of our platform is, they're highly targeted direct mail lists, and then you can invest a little bit more money, whether they be, we have users that actually will sit down and write, 10, 20 letters a week, handwritten letters, so in real estate investing, these are called yellow letters. And, it's, let me just ask you this. Are you more likely to read a printed letter or a handwritten letter that's been mailed to you?
Yeah, much more likely to read a handwritten note or letter, anything,
Exactly.
It's, and especially if and you see it. I'm like, because there's companies now that obviously you've dealt with that, they have handwriting robots that
yeah, which I mean, I'm not fooled. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah.
There's some that are good.
Some that are
good.
Okay.
Like, 'cause I know, like in some, like you can tell if it's a handwritten letter because number one, it's too perfect.
Yeah.
And like they use the same I, for example, or the same A. There's no variation, but some of these newer ones are
you're
getting
right.
creative.
I mean, they'll even randomize some of the letters, and maybe there's some imperfections that they can input with the robot. But yeah, so it's we like things that are personalized to us, that that address you by name, that have a first class stamp on them, certainly, and the bulk postage, the every door direct mail, that doesn't. So not only are you, targeting high propensity home sellers, but you're also, integrating that, coupling that with a very effective piece of mail. At least that's the whole strategy, in using our platform that allows you to really get these, awesome response rates.
Yeah, and this is something where you can really test out new marketing techniques, or different mail techniques, because you're not doing it on such a large scale. Like, you're not going to spend $5 on a piece of mail and send it to 10,000 homes, with that same spray and pray technique. Instead, if you have a targeted thing, you could really test out. Like, hey, I could send, let's just say 20, like 20, like $5 or $10 mail pieces where I, maybe I include a little, I don't know, some kind of something. You include it in there and get people more interested or more willing to open. Because, if you pique somebody's interest, I think, anyway, like if you send them a box rather than an envelope, they might be like, what's in this box? I mean, and if you inside there say, whatever, I mean, try out different things. And it gives you the ability, I think, to do your own research and development on your own mailing programs, and you can test the effectiveness of them quickly.
Correct. Yeah. So the other component of NAMO, which, so this is, again, there's some more features that we've built into NAMO, whereas Find Sellers is the step-by-step list generation. But there's actual, it's a map-based platform that our users use to visualize the sales activity down to that block group level that I mentioned. So it starts, if you're looking at the map at a, macro level, as we call it, you're going to be visualizing the turnover rate of the zip code. Are you familiar with what a turnover rate is? Maybe not everyone listening is. So, basically that's the number of homes sold in typically the time period is a year, which that's what we use in our platform, divided by the total number of homes in that area. So, if there's 100 homes sold in a zip code of 1,000, that would be a 10% turnover rate, which is quite high.
That would be extremely high.
That would be, that's a zip code you want to target.
Well, I don't know if I do or not.
Well, yeah, a lot of sales activity, that's for sure.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I mean, on average, a good turnover rate, especially here in California, SoCal, is around 4%. Some of the higher value neighborhoods, where there's less buyers that, can enter into that market, they'll certainly be, have a lower turnover rate, maybe in the 2 to 3%. But, you certainly want to, if I was to blindly, want to send this mail campaign, I had no idea about what zip code I wanted to target. Well, I would target a zip code, with the highest turnover rate if I'm just visualizing these metrics on a map. And then using our map, you can actually zoom in, and the map gets broken down into smaller geographies, and the turnover rate is mapped accordingly. So remember, I said the zip code, then the census tract, then the census block group, and then finally you enter into the neighborhood, where the homeowners, the parcels rather, are all color-coded by that homeowner's NAMO score, which is that propensity of selling.
And it's a really cool visualization because, the homes that are red mean they're not likely to sell.
Yeah.
The homes that are green have a much higher likelihood of selling.
Correct.
And it's very cool seeing it. I know, like the homepage for NAMO has like the graphic up there, which the first time I saw that, I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I want to know what this is about.
And it's also cool, when you visualize this on a map, you can sort of see clusters. You can see these little pockets of green, and, if you're visualizing 1,000 homes. And, another input that goes into our NAMO score is something called the herd index that we've created, which is so, in real estate, there's this term, follow the herd. So when somebody decides to sell in a neighborhood, maybe, you know, a neighbor a couple doors down, hey, you know, maybe this guy's selling. Let me see what my home's worth. Maybe I want to sell.
Yeah.
You know, because it becomes visible. You know, that's sort of it's activated in their own minds.
Yeah, you don't think about it,
You don't
but
think
all of a sudden
about
your
it.
next door neighbor's selling.
You're driving by a sign every day, and you
Yeah.
say, okay, well, let me look into this. You know, let me start looking for homes, though, and maybe.
Well,
you know,
plus, you know, and there's another effect there at play, because a lot of times agents, when they get a listing in a neighborhood, the smart ones anyway, will go knock on the neighbors' doors
Yeah.
and let them know that you're listing, you know, this home, or maybe you just sold it or whatever, and you're going to start the conversation with them. So, I mean, we tell the same thing to investors. Like, if you've bought a home in the neighborhood, it's just a common courtesy. You should go by and tell them, hey, we're going to be kicking up some dust over the next few weeks. I don't mean to bother you guys with it, but if we're making too much noise, or if somebody's parking in front of your house, just let me know, give them my cell phone, you know, and then you can start the conversation with them too. It's, you know, but mostly you're just kind of letting them know, hey, we just bought this house.
Yeah.
We're not trying to bug you, you know, but
planting that seed. So that's actually, you know, this term farm that, you know, a lot of people have heard, and it's nothing to do with an actual farm, but, you know, there are sort of analogies that people use. So I've heard it actually used as an acronym. So farm, focused area, real estate market.
yeah, I remember you dropped that on me. I was like, I've never heard that before.
Yeah, but most people think about it as, you know, whenever you're going out farming, you're planting a seed, right? You know, and then you have to water it in the form of, you know, follow-ups.
Sure.
You know, sending up, if you sent that letter, maybe send another letter the next month. And
You mean people don't just automatically go and hit them on their first try and that's it? You know, come on.
yeah, no, well, so certainly, you know, following up is a key component of converting any lead.
Of course.
So yeah, you know, it's this language farming. It's more, you know, specific to real estate agents, I think. But investors, you know, they've typically used prospecting, canvassing. But you know, it's what they're trying to do is get a deal. Whether it's an agent, an investor, they're trying to find a high propensity home seller, someone that is likely to sell, and you know, offer to buy their home or offer to list their home.
Sure.
So now that's the beauty, again, of our platform is, you know, whether it be sort of a standard sale, you know, for real estate agents. Again, there's different market dynamics at play in every single neighborhood. So if the last 10, 100, let's just use 100 transactions in neighborhood A have all been distressed home sellers that have sold their property to real estate investors, you know, below market value for whatever reason, maybe it needs a lot of work. Well, our predictive score will pick up those homes that, you know, have that average profile, and their score will increase accordingly. Whereas in another neighborhood, if they're all traditional, conventional sales, then, you know, maybe agents are, you know, will be the user that'll capitalize on that sale. So, yeah, that's sort of the.
But an agent, I mean, you know, and one thing that an agent could do is if, let's say, 100 homes were all just sold recently in an area, and they were all bought up by entity buyers, you know, then that means that there's now going to be 100 homes up for sale again soon. Those same homes that just sold 6 months ago or whatever, those are going to be up for sale again. So it might make sense for an agent to start contacting those entities and say, hey, I know this neighborhood really well. I'm a great agent for this area. Let me sell your flip when you're done with it.
Yeah,
you know,
certainly.
So that's why I think we talked about it, because you were talking about eliminating corporate owners.
Properties.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, you can't eliminate that stuff.
Yeah, you know, it's sort of, we just ran some analytics here in Riverside County. I think there's around 5 to 6% of all properties are currently corporate owned, you know, trust LLCs, and whereas in San Bernardino County, that number is closer to around 20%.
That's insane.
Yeah. So, you know, and I think a lot of people know, you know, some of the struggles San Bernardino had post 2008 after the crisis, and you know, investors certainly bought those properties up wholesale.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of them still own them.
Yeah, and you know, and because San Bernardino I mean, it's a great town. There's still a lot going for it, but yeah, they're having some problems. So we're having a lot of success in San Bernardino right now with our flips.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people want to live there because it's not the high desert, and it's just it's the same distance to drive into the job centers. You know.
Yeah.
It's a great commuter town at this point. You know, unfortunately, there's not a huge employment base in San Bernardino, but it'll come back. It's gotta. You know. Yeah.
I mean, it's still the most affordable area here in the Inland Empire. You it's Orange County. I think the median sale price is above 700,000
Yeah, which
now.
could buy you 4 houses in San Bernardino.
Yeah, yeah. So
Maybe 3 only now. I don't know.
yeah, and Riverside, there's a lot going on in the downtown area. A lot of cool development projects, and it's exciting to see sort of this area grow into maybe the next Silicon Beach, Silicon Valley. Who knows?
Yeah.
They are. I'm certainly part of this great startup community, and it's exciting seeing what my peers are doing. And there's no reason it can't.
I've heard some of the best businesses in California are in downtown Riverside right now.
Yeah.
I might just be speaking,
a little
from
biased.
yeah, I might be a little biased, but
Yeah.
I've heard it's a very cool place to be. That
It is.
I think Riverside was voted like the 8th coolest city to live in for millennials or something like that.
Yeah. It was. It really was. I think that was like a Time magazine.
And I want to say we beat
article.
San Diego or something like that, which was kind of surprising to me, or Austin or some other town,
Some
or
techie town.
Seattle or
Yeah.
like some big town. And I'm like, really?
Well, it all has to do with affordable housing still.
That's very true.
If, these people, these brilliant minds in San Fran and Silicon Valley, they're, you're making a good living, but you're living in a apartment in downtown San Francisco with 8 other people.
Yeah, spending $4,000 a month on rent.
Home ownership is obviously the American dream, and if you have the ability to own your own home out here and maybe even invest some of your income in purchasing other rental properties, why not?
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So basically, once people go to findsellers.com, they download they pick an area. They're like, I want to market in, let's just say, downtown Riverside. We're just talking about it. I want to market in downtown Riverside. I'm going to pull this list. Then they get a list, and then what? Right? Like, what are they supposed to do at that point?
Yeah. So that's up to you. So what we say is, we're not trying to replace anyone's marketing strategy.
Mm-hmm.
We're just trying to allow you to do it better, more efficiently, more effective.
Cost effective for sure.
Whether if you have your favorite print house that you've worked with for the last 10 years and they've been doing your mailers, you could just use our list, send it straight to them, and save money, because you're not going to send 1,000 pieces of mail the next month. You'll send 100, and theoretically, you'll achieve that same response rate. But, a lot of people go out door knocking. We do have a mobile app if you want to take it into the field.
Oh, yeah.
You can visualize your list right there on your phone, Android, iOS, and, efficiently target these, high-propensity home sellers by door knocking. So
those are available in the App Store and on
that's available in the App Store.
And the Google Play Store?
Google Play, correct. You got it.
Is it titled Namo, or is it?
Yeah, Namo is the app. So
So-
Find Sellers currently doesn't have an app, although that's something we're working on in production.
And Namo is like, it's like it's a mixture of neighbor and more. So it's
Namo,
Neigh.
correct.
MO.
Yeah, Neighmo.
Yeah.
You got it.
I know we talked about that before. Like, it's hard when you tell people Namo, like, because if you ask them to spell it back to you, they might be like Naymo or something like that, but it's Neigh.mo, like neighbor more.
Exactly. So, I always thought if you can keep it to 2 syllables, then you're doing something right.
Yeah, it is 2 syllables.
Yeah.
Somebody told me when you're naming something, I should be able to yell it to you at a crowded bar, and you can recall it and spell it properly.
Well, you could definitely recall it, although, people have certainly, thought it was spelled Naymo, but I mean, again, once you see it, written down, I think it makes sense.
It makes sense. It's clever.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's why it's the parent company, right? Because its applications are because it's knowing more about your neighbors, essentially.
Yeah.
But it's not just for real estate. It could be used in many other applications. We talked about political campaigning and stuff like that.
Yeah, so our platform, once you create this farm, and you can create a farm of 10 homes, 100 homes, but you could generate, this is on Namo, not Find Sellers, but you could generate these sort of seller lead reports, as we call them, and in that's basically a hot sheet of data that provides an overview of that home, homeowner's contact information, all the property characteristics. We have an automated valuation model, or as many people know it as a Zestimate, which predicts the current market value of that home. And that's important because we need to, analyze how much appreciation and equity that home has received, which is, those are inputs that go into that score. So yeah, a lot of rich data here, but then on the neighborhood side, this neighborhood profile that's generated in these market reports, or excuse me, the seller lead reports, it actually gives, a neighborhood profile of that farm. So, people on Zillow, for example, if you're seeing neighborhood demographic information, that's all from the census. So that's all. And the census, typically it's at the tract level because, that's, the sort of the smallest micro level that the census puts out that data for. So, percentage of ethnicities, percentage of age groups, incomes, all that demographic information. Whereas on our platform, since we predict this data down to the actual individual property level, well, you can define your own neighborhood and see that data accordingly.
Right. So I can say I know that, from baseline and hospitality over to, wherever, I can just draw my own little thing and say, this is the neighborhood that I want to deal with. Yeah.
Correct.
It'll come up with on the fly data for that.
Yeah.
That's area I selected, I guess.
And we're certainly aware of there's a lot of sensitivity in the industry to, the fair housing, discriminatory lending practices.
Absolutely.
And so, but, keep in mind, this is in the prospecting phase, so this is, identifying those high propensity sellers. And we have some users in Moreno Valley that are actually translating their marketing materials to Spanish by, filtering to high propensity Hispanic home sellers. And then, that mailer is going to be much more relevant to that homeowner. Yeah. Because it's, in their native language.
Yeah, and it's, it's a lot of people don't think race plays a role, right? It doesn't play a role in there, and it shouldn't in the sale of a home. But, it's very common for people to associate with people of their own race, especially when it comes to selling or buying a home, because
people like people that are like them.
Yep.
Let's just be honest,
yeah, we got to be honest about it. It's not, like I don't want people to get the wrong idea, I guess is what I could say, that, yes, there is race information in there, but that's also because, maybe a Hispanic agent, who's Spanish speaking, they want to reach out to other Spanish speaking people to, market to.
Yeah.
And because that's a valuable thing, and they need representation too. So it makes sense, but it's not in there for any kind of a race thing. Same with like Chinese people, for example. I know a lot of Chinese people transact really only with other Chinese people, but that's something that they speak Chinese. I mean, I can't speak Chinese. I would have a hard time dealing with somebody that speaks Chinese. It's just not my language. I'm sorry. So it's something that people can utilize, and that way they can narrow down their search result, because you might know as yourself, like, I have a very low chance of selling a Chinese person on selling their home, because number one, they won't be able to understand me. My language is English.
Yeah.
So
well, and again, it's getting back to the demographic information. You may send a different letter. So it's one thing to identify a high propensity seller, but now what piece of mail are you going to send to that seller? And that gets into the marketing strategy. So again, we're not trying to replace your marketing strategy, just allow you to do it better. So you may send one letter to a move up buyer, someone that's, its family is growing, kids are getting bigger, more kids are coming into the house, they need more rooms. So, you can actually kind of integrate some of this language into that prospecting letter.
Sure.
And, so it's much more targeted, whereas a completely different motivated seller, let's say they're approaching retirement, they're looking to downsize, that may be a different letter that you send to that homeowner. So, using our platform, you can, define your demographic farm, because there's people also talk about farms in terms of geographic farms, but also demographic farms. What is the clientele you're trying to, prospect? And, and then you overlay that NAMO score, and you can, find those high propensity sellers in that demography.
Yeah, and that's, it's such a large amount of stuff. If you were to try to do this on your own, like just talking about it with you right now, like, I already know it's an amazing piece of software, but then in talking it with you right now, I'm like, oh my God, like all the things that you would have to do to really put together an intelligent list on your own.
Yeah.
To do this without software, it wasn't possible. Let's just say 5 years ago.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, something that we'll be releasing in the coming weeks on Find Sellers, or what we call our seller archetypes. So again, getting back to this, is it a move-up buyer? Is it a buyer approaching retirement? Is it a distressed seller? Or, excuse me, no, move-up seller. Seller approaching retirement, distressed seller. Again, these are different letters that you'd send to each of these demographies, and what we'll be including in our filters is an actual profile of each that you can just click. Who am I trying to target? And just by clicking that seller archetype, you'll be able to auto-populate each of the filters and generate your list accordingly. So, it's on the find sellers. You can, move the listing score. You can increase it, decrease it, from 0 to 100 and see how many homes. It dynamically returns the number of homes in that given threshold. So you can see, if say I do have $1,000 to spend this month on my marketing, maybe I'll send it to, homeowners above 65% listings or NAMO score. Whereas if it's more constrained, if you only have 100, perhaps you'll use 85% as your threshold.
Yeah, and it's the nice thing about it is that, because I'm sure the accuracy score is good, but it's not going to be 100% accurate. So, even if you move the dial up to 100, and will your score actually pump out at 100?
There's very few. Yeah, I believe it tops out at 99. Occasionally, someone will achieve a score of 100, but again, it's.
But that doesn't mean there's a guarantee they're going to sell.
No.
Like, you could mail to them and. They might be like, no, I'm never moving.
So, yeah, again, without getting too wonky in the statistics, it's all based on that bell curve. And, so 65% of the population is plus or minus 1 standard deviation of the mean. 95% of the population is plus or minus 2 standard deviations, and 99.9% of the population is within 3 standard deviations.
Okay.
So, I don't know if that means anything to you.
It does. It does. I get it, but it's statistics.
So most of those, what that translates to on the predictive score side is most people are going to be in that plus or minus 1 standard deviation of the mean, because that's kind of where the meat of the curve is, and then it kind of tails out on either side accordingly.
Right. So, yeah, if you're at a 0, it doesn't mean you won't sell, but there's a pretty low chance.
It's very low.
Like, you just bought the house yesterday, and
Exactly.
Yeah, now that you slept in it one night and you found all the ghosts in the house, now you're ready to move out.
Yeah. So, and that's, again, it's, there's some people ask us, do you guys integrate, death records, marriage records, all types of these kind of hard data points? Whereas, no, we don't, because it's more on the pattern recognition side, various sales trends that we're actually looking at. There are some platforms that, they may say, yeah, hey, somebody, there's an estate sale at this property, or someone died. And, and then what happens? You have 100 real estate investors now pouncing on a widow.
And agents, yeah.
Yeah. So, we don't have these kind of hard, selling triggers, but we do integrate a qualitative I guess what we do is we show what is the highest weight that is increasing that person's listing score, whether it be appreciation trends in that neighborhood, years in home, equity, the herd index. Maybe if a lot of people are selling around them, there'll be a little bit of like a qualitative little description associated with each lead that outlines why that person may be selling.
And then how often does the data reevaluate itself?
Every day.
So every day.
Every day.
Wow.
So again, it's if today you have a score of 75, it's not to say that tomorrow your score is going to go down to 40. There may be some small scale changes. Maybe plus or minus 1, if that.
But
typically,
somebody that
that's
was
not going to happen on the day.
Sure.
But yeah, it's that's. It's taking into account the current market dynamics in a given area. So again, some of these central tendencies, there may not be many homes that sell in an area. So, sort of that average profile of homes is, going to be much more slower to change.
Yeah.
But, if this week the last 10 home sellers, had this profile, and the next week if it was a completely different profile as far as, years in home, all types of, property demographic data, then yeah, the listing score, or the NAMO score, excuse me. We used to refer to it as the listing score, which is why I keep making that slip.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it changes. It's given the daily market dynamics.
Now, okay, so we got about 5 minutes left. Like, have you talked about applying this to other industries besides just the political and the real estate side? I mean, other industries that could benefit from stuff like this?
Yeah, so I mean, sort of the low-hanging fruit, anyone that does direct marketing, whether it be, on the property level, whether it be landscaping, termite, home renovation, there is sort of a clientele that is much more likely to respond to you, to your service, to purchase your service. So it all comes down to training data, what we call here training and test data and sort of data science. Is you have to have some sample of data that gives you the outcome you're looking for. So
right.
Again, in politics, that sample would be, did you vote in the last election? In what the sample that we have now is, did that home sell? So the data may be a little bit harder to aggregate. If we were looking for, sort of landscaping services, we'd have to team up with someone that, is willing to divulge that data and give us the last 1,000, records of who's purchasing their lawn mowing service or whatever it may be. But
they may not be online.
No,
landscaping company.
But there's certainly a lot of verticals we can enter into, and right now we're solely focused on real estate, agents and investors. However, it's sort of the possibilities are quite endless. Yeah,
I mean, I was thinking while we were talking earlier, it popped in my mind that car dealers would want to know. I don't know if it's a common thing, because obviously it's just an educated guess for somebody, to decide when do people buy a new car. Do they buy a new car after they've bought a new home? Do they buy a new car before they sell a home? I don't know. I mean, you have to look at it.
You certainly not before you buy a home, because you don't want any more debt. So but
lenders don't like that too much. We just had a deal fall out because of that.
Really,
somebody went and spent money. I think they bought a car, they racked up a bunch on their credit card or something right before we were about to close. Yeah, and then
it happens.
We're like, are you kidding me? Come on.
But so it's predictive analytics, predictive modeling, machine learning, artificial intelligence. It's all sort of grouped under the same umbrella nowadays. And I mean, this is certainly something that is growing in every industry.
Yeah. So it has applications everywhere. So stay tuned for everybody out there to find NAMO all over the place. Helping these businesses market to you.
Anyone that does direct marketing, they could certainly do it better. And by better, increase the efficiency and effectiveness of it, send less pieces of mail, generate more leads.
Yeah, and aside from just marketing by mail, I mean the data also comes with quite a few phone numbers. So if you're more comfortable calling people,
if the phone numbers are publicly available, and we do scrub those phone numbers against the do not call list, so that's certainly something. If you subscribe to that do not call list, we make that data publicly available that person is on the do not call list. So you don't want to take that liability.
Right.
But it's a lot of people, maybe that's their approach, is they prefer sitting down an afternoon and calling 100 phone numbers in one time. Cold calling is the term in the industry. But going out door knocking or sending the mail. So we actually call our door knocking app hot knocking, because again you're knocking on those doors of hot, high propensity home sellers.
So real quickly, what is the website again, and what's the pricing real fast too?
Yeah, so the website is findsellers.com. That's the step-by-step list generation tool. NAMO.com is the parent company, the advanced farming app. Currently, we're offering users $1 month at just $1. And if you continue your subscription, the price will be $49 a month thereafter. And we're in Riverside and San Bernardino County. We'll be growing across all of Southern California by June into Orange, Los Angeles, and San Diego County. And the product keeps getting better every day. So
awesome.
Stay tuned.
James, I want to thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll see you all again next week, Thursday, 4 p.m. right here on KCAA. Have a good week, everyone. Take care.